Chapter 3. And Then Came Humans. One glance at a book, and you hear the voice of another person, perhaps someone dead for 1,000 years. To read is to voyage through time. Carl Sagan. Perhaps our greatest collective strength is insatiable curiosity combined with our unique ability as a species to preserve knowledge. This deep curiosity has assisted us in deciphering the mysteries of our existence, like the origin of the universe, the formation of our galaxy, our solar system, the beginning of life on planet Earth, and ultimately, how we became the modern humans we are today. Over millennia, this preserved knowledge has provided humankind with a stunningly accurate record of our human timeline and our place in the cosmos. While, over time, natural disasters and human conflict have destroyed many historic written and depicted works, archaeologists, anthropologists, historians, philosophers, and a host of other academicians have managed to piece together a remarkable picture of our movements as a species. We have moved into an information-based society where knowledge is our most valued resource. Everything we have learned as a species and all of human knowledge is now at our fingertips and virtually free to anyone with an internet connection. The downside is all this available information and misinformation can be overwhelming. Most importantly, however, with some persistence, we can train ourselves and perhaps become proficient at separating our personal and political truths from objective reality. To get started on that proficiency, the following is a selective and large timescale summary of our current scientific understanding of the beginning of time itself, the origins of life on our planet, and our human history. We'll take a shallow dive through our current cosmological, archaeological, and anthropological evidence-based understanding and conclude with a short cultural history. It can be so easy to live our lives without context. This chapter will serve as a foundation for a broadened perspective as you move through the subsequent chapters. In the beginning. Our human minds comprehend details best when using what is known as frameworks. Frameworks, simple or complex, provide an essential context for details that would otherwise prove difficult to manage. Frameworks can be anything we want. Frameworks are remarkably useful for spatially visualizing context when processing complex ideas and information. We will use the framework of timescale to organize the main points in this chapter. We'll start by going as far back in time as science will currently take us, the origins of our universe. It is our current understanding that the universe is roughly 13.8 billion years old and started with a bang, the Big Bang. A few millionths of a second later came the emergence of the fundamental forces of physics and the first elementary particles. After about 100 million years of expansion and cooling, the first stars were born, followed by galaxies roughly a billion years later. Our solar system formed about 4.6 billion years ago, and Earth, third planet from the Sun, around 4.5 billion years ago. Life got a relatively quick start on our planet in deep-sea hydrothermal vents 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago. From those early beginnings, life on planet Earth has shown to be stubbornly persistent. Through billions of years and 5 major extinction events, scientists estimate that at least 99.9% of all life that has ever lived on planet Earth has been wiped out by extinction. The last major extinction, the Cretaceous Tertiary extinction, happened around 65 million years ago. This extinction was the dawn of a new era as it wiped out about 50% of all remaining life from previous extinctions. From tiny marine organisms to dinosaurs, this mass extinction was so devastating that it marked the end of an entire geological era known as the Cretaceous period. These periods are referred to as deep time in terms of the 4.5 billion years of Earth's geologic history, and even deeper time when considering the age of the universe, 13.8 billion years. We need this framework to truly understand where we, modern humans, fit into this enormous timescale. We require this context or framework to understand just how recently we showed up. Modern humans on planet Earth. From Homo habilis to Homo sapiens, Over 200 years of fossil discovery have identified 15 to 20 different species of humans dating back 1 to 2.3 million years. Of that group, Homo sapiens, modern humans, arrived on the scene much later. Homo sapiens, or wise man, is the only surviving branch of the human tree. This tree includes you, everyone you know and have known, your ancestors, and your unique DNA. Humans are also mammals. There are around 6,400 known mammals on Earth to which we modern humans belong. It is currently estimated that modern humans, Homo sapiens, emerged about 200,000 to 300,000 years ago in Africa. For about 100,000 to 200,000 years, Homo sapiens remained there until something forced them outward, likely drought, disease, and scarcity of food. These early Homo sapiens then began traveling by walking. Still, it took many generations for our bipedal ancestors to survive the African deserts and reach places like Europe, Asia, and the Americas. In a ranking of major developmental milestones for our species, control of fire is somewhere at the top of the list. Harvard biologist and primatologist Richard Wrangham, Ph.D., posits that fire was required to fuel the human brain, and without fire, our history of language and culture would not be possible. The control of fire literally and figuratively lit the way of the future for humankind. The earliest evidence for the control of fire is estimated to be from 1.7 to 2 million years ago by our early human cousins. Our modern human ancestors gained control of fire about 125,000 years ago. The control of fire provided much-needed warmth, protection from predators, access to food, tool improvement, and perhaps more importantly, the processing of food through cooking. Cooked food was pivotal due to the extra net energy ingested from consuming cooked food versus raw. Cooked food also meant more available nutrients and the destruction of harmful parasites and microbes. Evolutionary biologists believe that cooked food was a primary driver for our species' development of a more robust and complex neural biology. This complex neural development in our brains eventually provided a pathway for higher reasoning. As Homo sapiens' brains began to grow in size and complexity, a truly unique cognitive ability began to emerge. The cognitive revolution. Modern humans made a remarkable leap forward around 70,000 years ago. This period from around 30,000 to 70,000 years ago is known as the cognitive revolution. The cognitive revolution is one of the most profound turning points in the development of our species as Homo sapiens began to communicate and organize through a unique and highly developed language. So developed was Homo sapiens' brain during the cognitive revolution that if we traveled back in time, we could teach them to speak and understand our modern language. As far as we know, Homo sapiens are the first species on planet Earth with the ability to talk about things never touched, heard, seen, tasted, or smelled. This unique ability to fantasize and invent legends, stories, myths, and superstitions allowed modern humans to break the upper limits of group size. Our human cousins could only manage 50 to 150 members before the group split into smaller groups. But during the cognitive revolution, Homo sapiens' quickly evolving language combined with the new ability to create fictions allowed for the potentially unlimited expansion of group sizes through shared fictional stories. With this unique cognitive ability to share superstitions, Homo sapiens developed a common narrative and rudimentary belief systems that began to unite disparate bands and tribes. These growing unconstrained group sizes eventually paved the way for a rapid cultural development that, through time, enabled our species' proliferation on planet Earth. Over the next 50 to 60,000 years, innovations abound for Homo sapiens. Sewing clothing, building primitive shelters, creating art, tools, and weapon improvements. Designing and playing musical instruments and more spurred remarkable cultural adaptations. These adaptations merged into a taming of the physical landscape and toward our next major milestone in human history, the Agricultural Revolution. The Agricultural Revolution. The Agricultural Revolution was a significant prehistorical transition. Humans were shifting from hunter-gatherer societies to agriculture, animal domestication, and settlement. The beginning of human agriculture was responsible for the first major settling down era around 10,000 BCE, before Common Era. However, the total human population numbers were still very low, 1 to 2 million, and life expectancy was still short, meaning that collectively the building of larger societies was a long way away. The agricultural revolution spawned centralized food supplies through farming and animal domestication. Over time, we slowly became group caretakers of our food, which, in turn, required a new kind of centralized community leadership and social cooperation. As modern humans began to transition from nomadic hunter-gatherers to localized communities, the development of systems for communication, infrastructure, and distributed roles and responsibilities also had to evolve to accommodate this new way of living. This settling down period in our human history meant that larger communities with generational knowledge and ideas were now being passed to the next generation rather than lost through smaller, fragmented tribal cultures. The Age of Metals. Despite the astonishing progress in human culture that began with the cognitive revolution, it is curious that for over 3 million years, our human ancestors continued to use only marginally improved crude stone tools. The Age of Metals, the Copper, Bronze, and Iron Ages, launched human civilization into a new epoch. No other materials in our history have shaped our future more profoundly than the discovery and use of metals. From an almost 11,000-year-old copper pendant found in northern Iraq to 8,500-year-old copper weapons found in Wisconsin by Native Americans, copper was the only metal known to humankind for almost 5 millennia. The Bronze Age, approximately 3000 to 1300 BCE, followed by the Iron Age, 1200 to 600 BCE, swept humanity into a rapidly progressing human culture. Through burgeoning agriculture, animal domestication, and the use of metals, many groups of humans began to have the time and resources to build something even more permanent to be passed on to the next generation. War and savagery still abound in the cultural landscape, but this was a pivotal time for our human species. These were the first baby steps toward the human civilization we live in today. Writing. Sophisticated language with the ability to create fictional stories separates our species from all others. But something was missing with storytelling alone. The final ingredient in the formula for world dominance as a species came with writing. Together, verbal and written communication as language took us from basic arithmetic in ancient Sumer, southern Mesopotamia, to all the wonders of the modern 21st century technology in only 5,000 years. Many scholars agree that writing had been invented more than once. Although once thought that all writing originated in Sumer between 3400 and 3100 BCE, scholars now agree that at least 4 ancient civilizations, Egypt, China, southern Mexico, and Guatemala, appear to develop writing independently. The cultural significance of writing would change the world in unimaginable ways. Writing was the key to unlocking the whole of human potential, but also Pandora's box. A New Dawn. When faced with an unknown, we humans have created millennia of fictions to explain the mysterious natural world we experience through our 5 senses. As previously discussed, the cognitive revolution came with unique ability of humans to create fictions. These fictions were passed down in oral tradition through stories for tens of thousands of years. The use of fictions is a striking common thread that built our human culture and led us to proliferate an entire planet. But a new human milestone was about to change everything. When our complex language was combined with writing, there was an inevitable outcome looming on the time horizon. That outcome was the compounding effect of preserved knowledge. Mythology and superstition had ruled our perceptions and explanations of the unknown for most of our existence. With the compounding effect of knowledge preservation, new ideas moved forward and began to challenge institutional thinking and static ideas in our culture. Also, new and revised explanations of the natural world grew into a cultural dynamic of intellectual investigation that jump-started alternative ways of thinking. The advent and use of complex language combined with its written companion created an avalanche of ideas upon which the following generations of humans could build. In the early first millennium BCE, human culture began to see its first signs of a distinctive new age. Expansions in philosophy, religion, and social frameworks ignited the beginnings of a simultaneous pan-Eurasian epoch of New Age thought known as the Axial Age. The Axial Age. The Axial Age was born out of our new human ability to preserve knowledge. Coined by German philosopher Karl Jaspers, the Axial Age refers to a period in ancient history that spanned from about the 8th to the 3rd century BCE. According to Jaspers, without any apparent cultural connection and in remarkable parallel development, a pan-Eurasian ethos emerged and grew throughout India, China, Persia, and the Greco-Roman world. The Axial Age was a shift from the predominantly external focus of day-to-day existence to internal awareness, self-accountability, and the new idea of transcendence. It was an astonishing time in that so many similar ideas were percolating somewhat independently from one another and producing masters in philosophies still relevant today. The Axial Age set into motion the intersection and amalgamation of intellectual, philosophical, and religious systems. The concept of philosophy arose as a new worldwide discourse on human social order and the human condition. The list of Axial Age thinkers is formidable. Confucius and Taoism, the 100 schools. The Hebrew prophets, Indian metaphysicians that included Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, and the Greek philosophers represented a shift away from the local concerns to the new idea of transcendence. Remarkably, we still use the main branches of Western philosophy from the first millennium BCE today. The branches of metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, politics, and aesthetics emerged to address the most basic and profound ideas of human existence. These branches of philosophy laid down the foundation for arguably the most significant periods in human history, namely the Renaissance, the Scientific Revolution, and the Enlightenment. The Renaissance. The compounding effect of knowledge preservation is without equal. The invention of writing catapulted human thought and progressed into a staggering succession of human understanding of the natural world. But the momentum of this new direction of human progress would suffer a significant setback for almost 1,000 years. Following the fall of the Roman Empire around 400 CE came what would be known as the Middle Ages. Coined the Dark Ages by Italian scholar Francesco Petrarca, this period was marked by pandemics such as the Black Death, war, ignorance, and famine. It would take another 900 years before our next pivotal breakthrough in the human struggle for knowledge and understanding of the natural world. In the 14th century CE, a rediscovery of the classical Greek philosophy coalesced into a new movement of human intellectualism in Europe. This new version of humanism saw the reemergence of science, literature, art, politics, and architecture, and fueled an era of social change that marked a distinct break from the Middle Ages. With this Renaissance, new ideas such as inductive reasoning, diplomacy, and educational reform, and the invention of concrete art and literature enthralled European intellectual life. Notably, Francis Bacon, Galileo, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Copernicus ignited new ideas that signaled the end of the Dark Ages and, to this day, an unstoppable march of human progress towards the most prominent pivot point in our history, the Scientific Revolution. The Scientific Revolution. The compounding effects of written word on human cultural progress cannot be emphasized enough, especially when assessing the compounding advancements of our species. While our social progress in the period of the cognitive revolution is remarkable, a few tens of thousands of years, it is but a blip set against the contrast of deep time. However, if we reset the clock to the advent of writing, the speed of our progress is almost incomprehensible. In the span of only a few thousand years, Homo sapiens have managed to crack the mysteries of matter, human biology, the cosmos, and indeed the origins of life itself. The fusion of raw cognitive power, imagination, complex language, and writing gave way to higher reasoning that moved our understanding of the natural world at a blistering pace. By the end of the Renaissance period, the scientific revolution would institutionalize our methods of investigation and knowledge of the natural world. The emergence of modern science through biology, chemistry, physics, and human anatomy completely transformed our society and how we looked at nature, the cosmos, and ourselves. Age-old superstitions about the natural world began to fall like dominoes during the scientific revolution. The old world order was now being challenged at every turn, eventually creating a bitter rivalry between science and religion that unfortunately continues today. The resistance to science was formidable, as science directly contradicted millennia of religious doctrine. Galileo proposed and could prove that the Earth was not the center of the universe. His reward? To be tried and convicted for heresy and forced to renounce his discovery or be tortured and killed. Ultimately, Galileo had to spend the rest of his life under house arrest, courtesy of the Roman Inquisition. Nicholas Copernicus, who first theorized that the Earth was not the center of the universe through his heliocentric theory, escaped the same prosecution as Galileo only by dying shortly after his revelation. However, Gianardo Bruno, a 16th-century Italian Dominican friar, was tortured and burned at the stake for publicly defending Copernicus. Dominican theologian Tommaso Campanella was also tortured for his defense of Galileo. Even in the face of subjugation and torture, these scientific pioneers brought world-changing discoveries to our collective consciousness, laying down a foundation for the giants of the future of scientific thought and discovery around the globe. The Enlightenment, the Age of Reason. The Enlightenment is a 19th century English translation of two original terms, the French term lumière and the German Aufklärung. The Enlightenment changed the world due to this period's large-scale societal momentum for worldwide technological and social advancement. The central ideas of the Enlightenment are the sovereignty of reason and the evidence of senses. These two central ideas preceded all primary sources of knowledge, emphasizing reason over all else. These ideas are woven into the fabric of skepticism, individualism, and science. The Enlightenment is where our modern government emerged. The concept of deism first appeared and challenged the ancient religious order in a new way. Although most Enlightenment thinkers believed in a God, theirs was a deist interpretation in that God did not intervene supernaturally with the universe. And from the deist idea, the separation of church and state was born along with liberalism, constitutional government, individuality, and religious tolerance. These radical ideas became the framework for modern human civilizations in the West, influencing new thinking worldwide and giving birth to modern medicine, astrophysics, and atom splitting. The Renaissance, the Scientific Revolution, and the Enlightenment are considered separate eras, and it is difficult to say with certainty when each of these three eras began and ended. Scholars are divided on such accuracy. Some postulate that all three periods encompass an epoch of complementary and synergistic intellectualism. These combined eras radically shifted social constructs by challenging static and religious belief systems and discovering entirely new ways of large-scale problem-solving. Despite the regression of human progress in the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, Scientific Revolution, and Enlightenment owe their reemergence of human reason to the great masters of the Axial Age. These are broad and shallow strokes, but fire, language, fictions, Age of Metals, the Cognitive Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, writing, the Axial Age, the Renaissance, the Scientific Revolution, and the Enlightenment are major pivot points of our astonishing progress as a species. With this progress has come exponential growth in worldwide human populations and an ever-increasing demand for resources to sustain life. Our lofty ambitions for global peace and prosperity demand more socially responsible and inclusive group cooperation for locating, refining, and distributing the valued resources that fuel our societies. While group cooperation can undoubtedly solve the distribution of resources issues, unbounded greed within our groups has also become the greatest threat to Earth's limited resources and human survival. The worst in us comes from our group aggression or mob mentality. Us versus them, outsiders versus insiders, those who belong versus those who do not. Perhaps as a matter of survival, these destructive group dynamics we experience in everyday life have been with us for thousands of years. We have defined and refined our groups throughout history through the fictions we create. the tribe, the country, the state, the race, the creed. Our goal throughout this book is to learn how to look beyond group labels such as race, religion, and political affiliation and begin to see the individual. This is the work of your life for the rest of your life. More importantly, is the clarity to accept individual differences and take a fresh point of view back to your groups. Even further, to broaden the tapestry of our shared resources to include compassion, civility, humility, and stoicism as a counterbalance to greed. Our origin story deserves much more than I can dedicate in this limited chapter, but hopefully this whets your appetite. I encourage you to dig deeper into this story, your story. Check the Pivot Point website for a list of resources to learn more. With this enormous timescale framework as a backdrop with some of our major developmental milestones or pivot points, let's launch into a human lifespan, your lifespan, and uncover some perspectives about where you've been, who you are, and most importantly, where you are going.